Greetings, dear friends, fellow programmers, and those aspiring to be. I have a question for you. Have you ever struggled to manage your dependency inside of your ASP.NET Core application? If so, I would have the freedom to say that you're in the right place, because today you will be attending an ultimate beginner-friendly guide for dependency injection in ASP.NET Core. Whether you're a complete beginner or a seasoned developer who just needs a refresher of their memory, this is going to be a very beneficial video, because the topic of dependency injection is something that many people, at least in my experience, struggle with in the beginning of their careers. Because it's a concept that is difficult to get a firm grasp on initially, but once you do, it's kinda something you always go for whenever you build something. And also, because of the importance of this topic, it's a very common interview question as well. So grab yourself a favorite drink and let's get started. First, let's kick things off by understanding what dependency injection is and why is it so important when you want to be a good ASP.NET Core developer. Okay, let's imagine the following scenario. You've built a robot that is going to be working on different kinds of chores. And instead of giving the robot one hand that is going to be a wrench and another hand that's going to be a screwdriver, you gave it a toolbox that contains those two tools, but also it contains a lot additional tools. And your robot can open this toolbox and use any of the tools from inside of it whenever it wants to. Dependency injection is basically the same thing. You're about to find out why. And welcome to our drawing board. This guy right here is our friendly robot, and this is his toolbox. And when we translate this into the world of programming, robot is going to be our class, and the toolbox is going to be a set of dependencies that this robot needs in order to perform all the actions that we expect him to execute. And basically, dependency injection is what is going to allow us to provide this toolbox right here to our robot without us needing to specifically give the robot one tool at a time by instantiating dependencies he needs. So dependency injection is going to do that for us. And that way, our robot is going to be very happy and eager to do everything what we expect him to do. And when we translate this into the world of coding, that means that our code is going to be more flexible, more maintainable, and more testable. As you can see right here, my drawing skills are not my strong point. But in one place where my drawing and writing skills do not matter, I will keep explaining the concept itself. So, let us jump to our IDE and get this party going. And as you can see here, I have prepared a very simple interface containing a single method called greet, which is going to expect to receive a single parameter called name, and it is also going to return a string. And now that we have defined this interface, which is going to be iGreetingService, we're going to create a concrete class called greetingService, and it is going to inherit from iGreetingService interface. And in order to do that, we need to implement greet method because it was defined in the interface, and if we want to instantiate a greet service class, we need to implement this method. So that is exactly what we will do. And it basically does nothing, it just prints the hello followed by the word we have provided. So now that we know this, it is time to set up our dependency injection configuration. Now, do not get me wrong. We can go right ahead to our controllers and use a new keyword to instantiate a new instance of a greeting service, and we will be able to use greet method without any issues. It's going to work perfectly fine. But that is not what we're going for I want to implement and set everything up so we can do it by utilizing dependency injection. So let us go to our program CS file, and there we need to add this line right here. So builder.services.addTransient. So addTransient is a method that I will explain a bit later in the video. And then we just specify that iGreetingService interface is supposed to be implemented by a concrete class called greetingService. And whatever you specify here, as long as it inherits from iGreetingService interface, you can use as a concrete implementation for this instance. So let us jump to our controller and I'll show you how it works. And here we are in our first controller ever. So we have created a private read-only field which is going to be called greetingService, and its type is the interface iGreetingService. Then how we're going to populate this field right here with an actual value is by utilizing our constructor. What is going to happen is ASP.NET Core is going to see that we want to create a new instance of iGreetingService class, and it is going to jump to our program CS file and search for which concrete class is supposed to be instantiated when working with iGreetingService interface. And when we do that, we will see that basically it is greetingService class. So when we have done that, right here we have received the new instance by ASP.NET Core's engine itself. It created a new instance for us and resolved all of its dependencies automatically. And then we just assign this value of the instance into our private field. Right here we are using the power of polymorphism because you can use iGreetingService interface as a replacement for all the concrete implementations of this interface, which is exactly what we do. And then we can use this greetingService instance to invoke greet method. After we run this, we should get hello world as a message. And behind the curtains, I basically updated the view so you do not have to worry about that part. And here we go, hello world. And basically that is exactly what we have provided through our greetingService and its greet method. I want to ask you a question. Now that you saw how we implemented dependency injection and configured everything properly, what is the whole purpose of doing this and going through the pain of creating the configuration here and also having to create a private field and then use a constructor to inject a value into this private field in order to just replace a single line of code which is going to create a new instance of greetingService and allow us to use same greet method which is going to work exactly the same as it does right now? Well, for the concrete example I used here, which is extremely simple, it might be better to do it that way. But when you're working with actual applications that contain actual business logic that is not as simple as printing a hello world message, you might struggle a bit with that approach because certain classes can require, if you remember our story about a robot, which is a class, that robot might require certain dependencies, which are tools, in order to work properly. So just imagine the scenario that our concrete greeting class contained additional classes that were required inside of it in order to be instantiated. So in order to instantiate a greetingService in that scenario, you would have to instantiate all the dependencies that are required in order to be able to instantiate a new greetingService. And when you go one level deeper, that those dependencies have their own dependencies, I hope you see my point right now. It would be a whole web of dependencies, and that, my friend, is a struggle. And the fact that ASP.NET Core does this for us behind the curtains is amazing because we do not have to worry about doing those things. And also, the benefit of the dependency injection is that you can switch the actual implementation by just changing the concrete class right here. So if I wanted, for example, to create additional class that is going to have completely different implementation, which is going to say hello in Chinese, and then follow it up with a name, and we want to change to use that implementation, we would just have to change the concrete class we want to use right here, and everything will work perfectly fine. Now, this comes perfectly handy when you want to introduce tests, for example, because in the current situation where you're instantiating a new concrete instance of greeting service, imagine how would you test it? How would you invoke a new test class which is going to test the behavior? It would not be possible. You would have to implement everything from scratch and then instantiate a new testing service, which would be a struggle that is not really necessary in the world where you have dependency injection at your disposal. Basically, by inverting control and making our code loosely coupled or decoupled, dependency injection allows us to be very flexible and have a code that is so much easier to extend, maintain, or change over time. And now that we got it out of the way, it is time for me to keep my promise. If you remember, I said I will explain what add transient means. So when we go back to our reference with our robot and its toolbox, our robot can borrow the tools for just performing a single hit of a hammer to a nail, or the toolbox can be robots forever. So it is the same with dependency injection. You have three main options at your disposal. You have transient lifetimes, scoped lifetimes, and singleton lifetimes. And each of these three lifetimes has its own purpose and use cases. So let me give you a theoretical explanation about this, and then in the upcoming videos, you will get a much better understanding about lifetimes and how to use them properly. So until then, sit tight and enjoy the base definition. The first one is transient, so the one that we used in our example. When it comes to transient functions, they will be used only once when requested. So basically, each time you request a service, it is going to be a new instance of that service, which is awesome when you want to create really lightweight and stateless services that you're going to be using. Now, the second option is scoped lifetime, which is going to allow you to use the same instance of a service within a single request in your application. This comes very handy when you've built an application where you want to keep the state in the application for every user as a completely separate item. Now, scoped lifetimes are very handy because their lifetime is equal to a single user request, which basically means that for each new user of your application, you will create a new instance of a service. But a single user within a single request is going to use the same instance of a service, which allows you to keep some states which are going to be attached to that particular user. And finally, we have singleton lifetime, which is going to mean that a single instance of your service is going to be created and used across entire lifespan of your application, meaning it will save the states throughout the entire usage of your application. These types of services are ideal for heavy and stateful services. So basically, when you want to know the states that were happening before. In conclusion, embracing dependency injection is going to bring a multitude of benefits in all of our ASP.NET Core applications. I'm talking about the benefits like testability and also the flexibility of your application, which in general leads towards a more robust and well-written applications that are a solid pieces of code that can be easily upgraded at your liking. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this beginner-friendly dependency injection video, because The upcoming videos are going to be extending on it and just extending our horizon when it comes to dependency injection and all the possibilities it brings to us. So if you would like to ensure you will not miss out on those videos, I would like to kindly invite you to subscribe to the channel, because that way you will increase the chances of not missing out. If you have any questions or concerns, please do let me know in the comment section below, and I'll gladly try to address them all. So that's it. Until the next video, thank you for watching and happy coding!